Okay. All right, everybody, if you would be so kind as to mute if you're not speaking at the moment, that'd be great. This is the October meeting of the Wharf District Council. Welcome, everybody. We have a few people here in the Leventhal Center and people joining us regularly over time. We have some important speakers, but not a lot of them today, so we'll have a chance to visit with each other and hopefully make this worthwhile for everyone. Let's see, we have some new members.
Yes.
That we should mention. Suzanne, you want to
Yes.
bring that up?
We have 3 new members who've joined the Wharf District Council. These are business members and they are the Greenway Conservancy, Faneuil Hall Marketplace, and well, Old Town I put on there, but they've been here for a little while.
Yeah. And Glenn as well.
Oh, that was the one I was missing. I knew there was a third one, and the Glen Hospitality Group.
Oh, yeah, great. So welcome to everybody.
Okay.
We are hoping that our new membership categories will attract some other folks sort of on an individual basis. And so please do spread the word that is available to those who would be interested in supporting the Wharf District Council. We do appreciate that.
We will try to get something out for the November meeting, giving folks information regarding joining as an associate member for non-business folks. And also, before we get started, maybe we want to tell them the good news about December.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
So I'm overjoyed to say that we are going to have a holiday gathering again at the New England Aquarium, at the IMAX lobby. I guess it's not the IMAX anymore, in the theater lobby on December 19th. This would be the regular Wharf District Council meeting date. So we look forward to having another gathering. When is it again, Sam? December 19th. And I see we have our police officers here on the Zoom, and I'm hoping that once again we can participate in your toy drive. I know Officer Chempa, you were instrumental in helping us with our contribution to the toy drive last year. So
Yeah, we'd be delighted to do that again, and appreciate your leadership on that.
Absolutely.
I will talk.
We'll touch base.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I will
Thank you
talk
so much
when
to all
at
of
our
you.
next meeting.
Contributed.
I'm sorry.
Right. Sheila says she will coordinate with you, Officer
At
Kennedy,
our next meeting.
at the
yeah.
next meeting.
Terrific.
Yeah, great. Great, that's always worthwhile, and we appreciate your leadership on that. Okay, first order of on the agenda is Captain Martin. I think, is it Captain Martin going to be speaking, or one of you about what's been going on in the neighborhood? Appreciate it.
Hello, everybody. Thanks very much for helping us with that toy drive as well. That'd be very helpful, very generous of you all. But yes, so Captain Martin, for you all who don't know me, I'll briefly go over the couple incidents that would be of concern in your area, and then leave it open for any Q&A, anyone who has any issues or anything we need to address. So quickly, there's been 5 incidents that would be of concern to you. One was on Monday, October 9th. Officers responded to, excuse me, my receptor just went out. Do you still got me?
Yeah.
Sorry, my went blank here. Officers responded to a person with a radio call for a person with a knife at the intersection of Atlantic Ave and State Street. There's an individual near the female bathroom at Marriott Long Wharf, just lifting a knife up anytime a female would walk in. One of the females' dad, observed the guy was monitoring him, and the gentleman pulled the knife and lunged at the dad. The dad didn't move. and the suspect just actually walked away. An emotionally disturbed individual. A park ranger nearby took a photo of the gentleman. We were able to distribute that to throughout the district, trying to identify this individual. And once identified, we will file charges and grab that individual. He has not been seen since or any other issues. However, hopefully at the next meeting, we'll be able to report that we identified and arrested this individual. On October 2nd, at sometime after 10:30 p.m., we had a radio call. We had a B&E to a motor vehicle at 269 Commercial Street. The gentleman's back window was smashed and some expensive merchandise was taken out of his vehicle. Again, detectives are reviewing camera footage, trying to survey the area, see if they can identify that individual. The last 3 incidents all led to arrests. One was on October 7th. There was a disturbance call at Surface Road and India Street in Boston. Another emotionally disturbed individual who was staying in one of the nearby tents was following around a special needs girl who was walking her dog with scissors. Another gentleman intervened and he began threatening that individual. Officers responded, immediately took that individual into custody and made sure that the special needs female was okay, didn't need medical attention. That suspect was arrested and processed that evening. On October 4th, at about 12 p.m. at the 7-Eleven, again, you had a shoplifter, another emotionally disturbed individual. Unfortunately, a shoplifter in the store trying to steal some candy. He was stopped by the clerk, where he proceeded to grab a couple cans of soda and repetitively hit the clerk upon the head, causing many lacerations to his face. We were able to locate this individual, identify him, and he was taken into custody as well. And then lastly, we had Monday night at 70 Rose Wharf, we had a B&E of a boat, and officers were able to respond quickly and not too far from the scene. We were able to locate the individual with merchandise on him and place him in custody. So 3 of the 5 incidents that affected you all resulted in arrest. We should be able to locate and identify and locate the individual who drew the knife at the bathroom, who's a disturbed individual as well. And then we will do our best with that B&E. Right now, we haven't found any surveillance footage, but detectives are still working. Aside from that, I know last time you had some complaints about traffic. I know I relayed the challenges of staffing. However, sir, you got to throw it on mute.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you got to throw that on mute, sir. So you had some issues with traffic. Again, we have mobile operations patrol who assists us. There's only a limited number of them, so we are in the queue. We deploy them throughout the city at various locations. So they will be coming down here. I believe we're next in the queue to come down to assist us with some of the traffic issues. They'll stay down here for about a month or so, a couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. Do a lot of enforcement action, a lot of education, hopefully try to curb some of the behavior, and then they move on. So we are in the queue for that. And then pertaining to any homeless issues, I'm going to pass that off to Sergeant Cross and Officer Champa. And then after they finish, I will stand by for Q&A and any issues that you all have and that you want us to address or anything you want to talk about regarding these incidents. So I guess Sergeant, Frank or Zach, you want to address any homeless issues?
Yep, I got it, sir. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Sergeant Zach Cross from the Community Service Office downtown. So as the City Council continues to work through their plan of the new tent ordinance that's going to be coming in fairly soon, right? There's some working groups going on about how they're going to manage that and what they're going to do with it and enforcement, and then obviously getting these people resources and whatnot once we remove them from their tents. We may see a small change or a spike in some of the people that are getting displaced from the Mass and Cass area that may make their way down to downtown, right, to some of the resources that we have here, i.e. the shelters, the methadone clinics, the various outreach organizations that help people in their need. We ask that you continue to work with us, alert us to any tents. I'll speak on behalf of the captain. We're very anti-tent for all of the criminal behavior and some of the real emergencies that could happen inside those tents. If someone's overdosing in a tent, we can't see it. there's human trafficking issues or sexual assaults taking place in those tents, we can't see it. Just can be very dangerous. So we're very big anti-tent for all those reasons. So please, we ask you to continue to put the 311s in for tents. If you want to call 911, totally appropriate to report it. But the biggest thing we can ask of you is that you just let us know. We can't address things if we're not aware of them. So you gotta fill us in on what's happening. Otherwise, we're doing pretty well in the Wharf as a whole for homeless issues. Trying to move along some of the groups that just kind of hang out, right? Obviously, there's the few that stick around that we're trying to get moving. But as we move into the colder weather and the winter months, hopefully we can get those people something more stable and get them kind of out of your neighborhoods. Any questions on that at all?
Because that's the first time that I've heard about tents being things that you're particularly not in favor of. And I think that's worthwhile spreading the word more broadly. It makes a lot of sense. And I know that you're trying to deal with the homeless in the best way possible, but that's interesting.
Yeah, it's something that's thankfully we've been kind of sheltered from it a little bit. Obviously, there's other sides of the city that have been much more plagued by it, but we are starting to see it down here. We're working very diligently to not get them set up, because one tent invites two tents, and next thing you know, you have a small camp, 3, 4, 5, and they get dug in. It gets very hard to get them to move on. It's not something that we're doing out of coldness or without compassion. We're trying to get them into something. We're trying to get them into actual beds versus tents. So that's kind of the issue we're working through, as well as, sure, it's unsightly, but there's other issues other than just the unsightliness of it.
And is it your understanding that the mentally disturbed people that Captain Martin was talking about were probably homeless people, or do you know that?
Some of them are. Yeah, a lot of them are either, I'll say, homeless in terms of they don't have an address. They don't own an apartment. They don't own a home. Some of them use their permanent address as one of the shelters. Right? It's on their ID cards that they get from the state. They have a mailbox, right? All these shelters, 17 Court Street, 39 Boylston, 31 Bowker, they all, while they are a shelter, some people do use that as their legitimate address. They receive mail, social security checks, jury duty notices, whatever they get, go to those addresses. So homeless, yes, but they might use the shelter address. Or some group homes for some of the mentally ill. They're not in a shelter, that are a state-sponsored group home, but during the day they are allowed to go out and venture the world just like anybody else.
Just to answer that, two of the three arrests were from the Pine Street where they're at. I got a day arrest on the individual last night for the boat, but two of the other three were the Pine Street is their address.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, that was a question. Other questions?
Did you have
Or,
a question?
Doug has a question.
Any update on the car theft from September?
Question was, any update on the car theft from September?
No, yeah, which, no, you know what? Yeah, I will.
At the Folio Garage.
And next door.
And next door.
Yeah. Yeah, I will, I'll follow up with detectives. I'll find out if they made an arrest or if there's, what they got on that. I will get you an answer.
Thank you. Yes, Matthew?
Two questions, for Sergeant Crossan. My understanding, having attended the city council hearing last week and the working session yesterday, is that while we're talking about tents, there's also sort of a notion of campsites overall. Seen an uptick of people who are sleeping outside in what are certainly not tents, but are sort of makeshift shelters. Would those also be what you're looking to enforce after the ordinance is passed, assuming it is?
So I watched, I mean, it was like a 7-hour video. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched some of the highlights yesterday on the city's website, on the YouTube website. And so there was talks about, Councilor Roy was talking about, tents, tenting material, and wanted to narrow down tenting material. I assume that's what you're leaning towards. What is tentage material? Is a blanket that's thrown over the back of a bench, and then use some rocks to kind of make a little teepee. Is that considered a tent? Is that considered the start of an encampment if it's just a blanket that's used, or a tarp that's used for shelter? I think the city council needs to hammer out some of those specifics. So we are given the tools to enforce that and then not, again, stamp on people's various constitutional rights. Because we don't certainly want to do that. So that's a fine line. I think the city council needs to hammer out some of that stuff, which I think I've heard some of the councilors advocating on our behalf, that don't set the police up for failure by writing something that is going to put us in a jackpot, regardless of which way we go.
Practically speaking, downtown, a lot of it is cardboard boxes, but I'll follow up about that as they.
So there's a thought, and I've been working with this actually with some of our patrol guys who have said, there are way too many cardboard boxes, to your point exactly, that get left outside of businesses waiting for, say, trash pickup. So one of my thoughts is to work with the counselors to maybe even up the trash pickup, right? If it's only done every so often, but there's just boxes and boxes that are left outside. These folks come and grab these boxes and turn them into, shelters, for example, right? Can we do something to pick those up more frequently? So there's less raw materials for them to then go and build their little outdoor shelter.
And just a quick follow-up for Captain Martin. You mentioned the traffic enforcement and education. Is there a particular area that is going to sort of be distributed?
So a lot of 311 calls come in with problem addresses with Sergeant Cross and monitors. So we're gonna go ahead and pull all the problem addresses we have the most complaints about, and they'll be deployed to all those spots first. If they're not, once they get some enforcement action there, or the activity quells, we'll move them along to other places along the way, as long as we have them. So it'll be situation driven, but mostly based off the 311s and any complaints from you all. But just to back up, to get a little bit more into what you're saying about the cardboard boxes, it depends on the location. If they're popping up a cardboard box in the common after 10 o'clock, the park's closed, we're taking those boxes out, and they're subject to arrest if they don't move on. So you got to kind of treat them both similar, because if you don't handle it quickly, they will build, whether it's a tent or a cardboard box or so forth. So again, these individuals are being all offered beds and shelters. They're just often choosing not to take them. So they are being off the resources. And if they don't take them, then you gotta handle it differently, right? You can't allow them to get comfortable and have it build and make it a bigger issue. And again, like Sergeant Cross has said, it opens up for, this special needs female to have a knife pulled on her. It has for kids to get pulled in these things, or people to get raped. So again, we're trying to be cognizant of, these people's needs and their mental capacity. But once they don't accept the resources, you got to handle it differently. You got to move to the next, take enforcement action and move it to the next level.
Matt, like we've talked about in the past, I personally don't think we need this new ordinance to enforce, but I don't make the policy. So there's already ordinances against camping in camping in public spaces without express written permission from, I forget exactly who. There's already ordinances against blocking sidewalks, right? Failure to allow the free flow of pedestrian and vehicle traffic. Tents on a sidewalk do block pedestrian traffic, right? Even if it doesn't block off the whole thing, the statute just says blocking. It doesn't say how much. So I think there's already existing laws on the books that we can use, city ordinances on the books that we can use. But the city council has taken a look to say, okay, we're going to take down the tents, and then what else do we do with them? There has to be bed space available. There has to be ability to store someone's personal property, so that way we're not just throwing their stuff into the trash, right? So I think this ordinance, while we can do our job without it, I think this ordinance strengthens kind of the collective response with the coordinated response team.
That's it.
Can I ask a
Sure, go
question?
ahead.
Thank you. There's an area along the 40-point channel, in between Congress Street and Center Street, right behind the Federal Reserve. That is sort of from a neighborhood association perspective, no man's land. And just curious on the attention that gets paid to that area, given that you're probably not hearing from the neighborhood association as much, since it's kind of out of business.
So I was there Thursday. I had a meeting down there, and I was down there Thursday. They had taken up about 6 benches. When I got there, DPW was already there. Our street outreach, so the Boston police officers assigned to street outreach were down there, as well was a couple of outreach workers from the St. Anthony's Shrine were down there. To talk to some of the folks to get them moving, conduct some warrant checks on a few folks who we thought might have had some outstanding warrant issues, and then to get those folks moving. Out of the half a dozen benches or so they had occupied, every single one of them. I got back at 3:01, I believe it was yesterday No, it wasn't a 3-on-1. It was another general inquiry about it. One person was on one bench, but they hadn't completely set up their camp. The other benches were available. We got the people who have kind of had a lock on that spot in the last month or two. We got them to move along. It's not to say it's going to be a permanent solution, but we did make some progress end of last week and then the beginning of this over the weekend. So the Federal Reserve Police are working very closely with us. Chief Schumann and his team. It's not their space, but they've definitely helped us keep an eye on that because their building is right behind it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you all for all that you do for us every day and for helping us to understand what you do and appreciate it all the more.
Yeah.
We're grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are going to now hear from Sarah McCown from the Harborfront Neighbor Alliance, which the Wharf District Council is a member. So Sarah, thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for Suzanne, especially for issuing an invitation and to speak tonight. And I think one of the things that you said in your agenda is just very natural, that neighborhoods that are near each other work together and form connections. And I know Suzanne and I have been on some different advisory groups from both sides of the Fort Point Channel. I should say that I'm a Fort Point resident involved in our local neighborhood association before I became executive, still am, and beyond my role as executive director of the Harborfront Neighborhood Alliance. So I will say Suzanne and I worked on the Northern Avenue Bridge Mayor Advisory Task Force, and the only update I have is from this spring, which is the only work that's being done is stabilization work by the city. So just wanted to put that out there before any hands came up about that. So one of the things that we recognized a few years ago is that all the rapid growth and development that was occurring in the seaport. And as we looked at that and we identified that there was really kind of a lack of a strong residential voice on these environmental and economic and social issues that we're facing our waterfronts. And we realized that we weren't the only ones in that boat, which is always happening. And so at the same time, the Bar Foundation had come up with a special initiative to advance the public realm of the Boston waterfront. And FPNA, Fort Point Neighborhood Association, applied for a grant, and thus the Harborfront Neighborhood Alliance was created to bring together originally just inner harborside, our waterfront neighborhood along the Boston Harbor to look at growth, development, as I said, and sustainability of an accessible waterfront. And one of the things that we look through these issues at is making sure that there is preservation of equity and public access to public amenities and open space along the waterfront. And as we all know, there are many co-benefits of looking from that prism. So our core areas as we got together as a brand new group turned out to be, as we wouldn't be surprised to this group, climate resilience, waterfront development, and water transportation. And these are issues that are a little more unique to the neighborhoods that we live in. And the people that came together, your work district being a great member, council and others, and we really started networking and bringing in speakers to address these issues, to educate, to build sort of understanding of processes and regulations that impact our development, and at the not only at just the city level, but also at the state level, because there's definitely an overlap. And one of the ways that the waterfront development is rather unique is some of the state requirements. And so we wanted to build sort of a thorough understanding of that. And with that, we have an ongoing initiative that is only in draft form at this time, but we're looking for feedback from our members, which we're calling waterfront development projects, points of engagement roadmaps. And we're looking at the state levels, which would be the Mass DEPs for Chapter 91, go into that a little tiny bit, and then also municipal harbor plans. I know you all had an interesting experience of having one and then having it withdrawn. And that's through the coastal zone management at the state level and the city proposing that. And then we're also looking at, of course, city processes for Article 80 in terms of development, also ZBA, zoning board of appeals, zoning commission, planning documents, and planning initiatives as well. So coming attractions, and we'll be asking for your feedback. And Sheila heard a little of that the other night. And just thinking about, and not to step on any toes of any other neighborhood associations that are here tonight. I'm going to talk about what I think makes waterfront neighborhoods unique. And that is I'm going to start with a little story. So one of the things that we did in January of 2022 was we invited our at-large candidates. This was their first year for the newcomers and a couple that were repeating from prior administration. And we wanted to educate them about these issues that I mentioned, these key areas. And so we thought, well, a nice way to kind of start the conversation is just to ask them, well, could you share a memory about either your favorite waterfront place on the waterfront, or the first time that you traveled to the waterfront, experienced the waterfront. And it was very interesting that the majority of the at-large city councilors had never been to the waterfront until they were campaigning for their at-large position. And that, I think, is really telling, because obviously we know what we know and we know what our life is like. But I think it was just very interesting to keep in mind that we are, a little bit unique, having the challenges of living by and on water. So let's see. With that, I just wanted to talk briefly about my favorite subject, Chapter 91, which is also known as the Massachusetts Public Waterfront Act. And I think the reason I like to bring it up is because I think it's a great tool to leverage in waterfront development. The developers are required, if they have a non-water dependent project, which most of the projects that come before us are, except for marinas, and they're required to give public amenities. So their ground floors have to be 75% of what they call facility public accommodation, which is basically a place where the public can go in and get a good or service. They have to provide 50% open space, which is very helpful as we're looking at resiliency, parks serving as resilient solutions and as recreational. And we look at our ground floor spaces, we're really trying to look at it in a more of an equity lens and inclusion, and saying, leveraging them as an opportunity to say, well, let's get local businesses in here and let's help them and make sure that they can afford it. And so I look at the downtown pilot program that is occurring with spaces. Probably don't have the exact title of that.
Space grants.
Thank you. And space grants. And just talk to the city a little bit about, hey, there's this other opportunity along our waterfront where we could combine these different programs together to be successful, to have a greater degree of affordability and not have everything high-end restaurants, which is what we see a lot of. And we've got some wonderful, beautiful examples. How many people know where we are right now? It's a Chapter 91 space. And it's free to us all use.
Yep.
So it's just a great example of also community and civic uses as well. Let's see, a lot of the things that we've looked at, obviously resiliency, and one of the things that we were concerned about is, all these plans, are they just going to sit on the shelf? And one of the great talks that we had this year, Suzanne kindly put us in touch with Derek from I'm part of your climate resilient task force conceptual district protection plan. And that was fabulous talk, and looking at it from a standpoint of not only some of the interventions that you all are considering in the work district, but also as a model. And I know the North End is looking to try to create a similar.
Yeah, we gave that presentation last night.
And so that's fabulous, but also it was a great meeting and understanding how we might be able to scale this with necessary funding in other parts of the Wharf fund. We deal also with like some planning and some development. I talked about that. That's pretty much all I was gonna, anybody has any questions? Suzanne?
I would say one of the biggest problems that exists around here with respect to visitors is the lack of bathrooms for these people. And it's not just a Wharfist problem. You're shaking your head. You know it. We don't deal with it. It's cumbersome. And I mean, even on the Greenway, it's like they have to bring porta potties in if they have an event. And it's unfortunate because I can't tell you how many people come to the front desk at Harbor Towers with a small child and say, do you have a bathroom we can use? And it just, you know,
It's a great point. And, you know, it's also a huge equity issue. Because I remember having a conversation with Ted Lansmark, if you all know Ted, a great, one of my real heroes in life. And Ted said to me, you know, one of the reasons why young people of color do not come to the waterfront is because, unlike you, Mark, who is perfectly comfortable walking into Legal Seafood and saying, can I use your bathroom, please? And they will let me use it. That will not be necessarily the case for a minority population. And we need to do something about that, because if we actually do believe that this is a place that should welcome everyone, it needs to be set up so that it could welcome everyone.
So I'll say that that is the most required facility of public accommodation in Chapter 91 is having public restrooms. And we have challenges that some of them aren't easy to find. To Mark's point, you know, you and I might go in and say, no, we know we have the right to use this restroom and you need to let us in. People that aren't educated or, you know, don't feel comfortable sort of demanding that. So I think as we look at public restrooms and waterfront developments and the mandates that Chapter 91 requires for them to be, it's really like, where are they? How easy are they to find? How many barriers are you putting up? You have to go and ask somebody at the front desk for us to then give you a code or unlock the bathroom for you. All these different things that kind of will deter somebody, and they really are. Thank you for bringing that up. They're the most important.
But the other thing too is it's not just what you two are talking about. It's also the problem when you have public restrooms and the public is using them, unlike Quincy Market, where they have a whole system where there are attendants that take care of the facilities. You've got a situation like in the Marriott Hotel where the bathrooms are become places where people won't go in, where even the cleaning people at the Marriott refuse to clean them, because in addition to people that need to use the facilities, you also have, unfortunately, other people that abuse the facilities. And I mean, it's easy to be in a meeting and say, okay, we need public restrooms, but we have to look at the entire situation and what that entails,
Right.
and solve more than just giving them toilets.
Matthew has his hand raised, if I may.
Which
Well,
Matthew?
hello, everybody. Hello from beautiful Asheville, North Carolina. And I apologize for any background noise, but I'm getting ready to catch a flight back to Boston. I just wanted to mention on this topic of public restrooms in the Wharf District, and especially along the waterfront area. It's something that we have brought up with Kleinfelder Associates in association with the State Street project. And I'm not sure if Rick or Luz is on this call, but I know that that project has broadened a bit. And so I have encouraged them the folks doing that study to take that piece into consideration. For what it's worth, you know,
Great.
that's something I've made them aware of as a critical need for our neighborhood.
Yeah, great. Thank you for doing that. Yes, please.
Just to add to that, it's not just for the residents. We deal with 2,000 plus people a day who are boarding our vehicles at the end of a Marriott Long Wharf. And it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say 50% of those people ask us at some point, where are the closest restaurants?
And what can you say?
The standard answer is to direct them to the public ones at the, halfway up under the Marriott Long Wharf or across the road into Quincy Marketplace. There's no other option.
Is that adequate, or is that quantity?
Not at all. If you, on a busy weekend in particular, on a busy day, you'll see the public ones at Marriott Long Wharf will be a line out of the door and around the corner. And they're not nice ones to use, and they're certainly not indicative of the experience we're trying to give people welcoming them to Boston.
Right.
The ones in Quincy Marketplace are much better, without a shadow of a doubt, but there's still a public restaurant that has a line out of the door, and on a busy day, you could easily be waiting 10, 15, 20 minutes to get in and use a public restaurant that hasn't been cleaned. And in all fairness, it's not been cleaned, not necessarily because they don't want to clean it, but they know full well there's just no time, they can't shut it down because the line is there all day long.
That's a good point. Matthew, is your hand still raised? No, okay.
I did not mean for it to be, sorry.
Yeah, okay. Norm?
Yeah, so I fully agree with the issue about having adequate and clean public restrooms. One of the quickest things we can do to address it is to force signage to be put up where there are such restrooms. Joe's American, as part of their license, I think, to operate, they have inside a restroom that is available to the public, and there's a tiny little sign that potentially people could accidentally see. In several other places, like the Atlantic building on the corner across the street from Hook, there's a public restroom that you can barely know is available to you.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, we need better facilities. Yes, we need more facilities. Yes, they need to be cleaned. But let's at least start with telling people where they are in the first place.
Good point. Very good. And
so I'm happy to provide a list of all the Chapter 91 licenses in the district and the ones that have public restrooms, and you will, so that you all can
that'd be great.
help with all the signage and making sure that these restrooms are open. I mean, it really, Mass DEP doesn't have the bandwidth to enforce and know what's happening in every neighborhood, so they really rely on
That'd be great.
streets.
Yeah. Sarah, I think what you're doing in terms of trying to build a coalition of similar interests between neighborhood groups is really, really commendable, and we're happy to be a part of that. And we have some events coming up that are in that theme, and we have Matthew here from the Downtown Boston Neighborhood Alliance. We're going to be doing association, excuse me. We're going to be doing an event together, but do you want to tell us a little bit about?
Can I just say one thing?
Yes.
I just want to recognize Sheila Willard, who is our representative.
There we go.
We're delighted to have Sheila join us. She's been with us the last couple of meetings.
And thank you for doing that, Sheila. Appreciate it. Tell us a little bit about the Downtown Boston Neighborhood Association.
Sure. So the name is actually somewhat recent because the Downtown Boston Neighborhood Association is the new name after the merger of two existing organizations. So I'll give you sort of a little bit of history of that quickly. So what had been called the Midtown Park Plaza Neighborhood Association, which is really a mouthful, had been around for about 20 years and represented, as you might sort of guess, Park Plaza. And for those who maybe don't, hi. For those who maybe don't have a nuanced understanding of the history of sort of the micro neighborhoods of downtown, Midtown is technically the legal name from a zoning perspective for a very specific portion of what most people think of as the theater district and sort of the suburb of downtown Crossing. And 20-something years ago, when folks were looking around and trying to kind of organize some neighborhood association around that, they figured, well, we'll take that name plus the Park Plaza name and sort of switch it together, and thus that was born. And that organization had always been sort of first and foremost. Oh, sorry, Mike.
No, I'd be better that way.
So that organization had always been representative of both residents and other interests, but was sort of very oriented around kind of some of the institutional partners, including Emerson, and some of the larger businesses in the area, and hotels and such. And in parallel to that, about 10 years ago, residents downtown, as there kind of became an uptick of residents living downtown, we're looking around and saying, there's this sort of dearth of civic association here. And as often happens, a lightning rod issue arose that kind of got the initial group together, which was a proposal for what I think was described at one point as like a cruise ship on land or something. I don't know, they had like a funny tagline for it, but basically they wanted to build this very large sort of like arcade bar space on Washington. And a lot of people weren't necessarily concerned about the premise, but they were concerned about the particular operator that was proposing it, which had been sued in a number of other states and didn't really look like it was very financially sound. So some residents got together and approached the city and said, we're sort of concerned about this proposal. It's not clear that this is like a good anchor tenant. And as it turned out, the company went bankrupt about 3 months later, so they were right. But it fomented the beginning of what 10 years ago became what had another name that was like even more of a mouthful, but eventually became the Downtown Boston Residents Association, just trying to specifically represent residents downtown. And over time, the DVRA and then PA, whatever it's mouthful, we're sort of growing side by side and doing the same things with a sort of overlapping catchment area to some degree. And everyone started looking around and thinking, why every time we have a project proposal come, do we have them do an abutter meeting and a meeting with the MPPNA and a meeting with the DVRA? And, it just was getting to be more and more of the same repetition. And there were more and more, sort of the effort you've been making, more and more collaborative efforts happening between the groups. And so this year, several months ago, we started talking about how we could collaborate more, which eventually turned into let's just merge and become one organization. I think the best way to think of it is the DVRA is sort of the through line, and MPPNA has kind of joined in with us because we had kind of become the much larger organization at this point. Their leadership team has joined ours. Their membership that included not just residents, but also businesses and Emerson and some of the other institutional partners, some of the social service organizations in the downtown area have also kind of joined in so that we're trying to sort of bring together a larger representation of what downtown is as a neighborhood, not just the residents. And we now have this new name that is itself easy enough to, confuse the letters and words of, but tried to take pieces of each of them. We're also sort of following in the footsteps of the FPNA and LDNA and some of the other, neighborhood associations around us that we have sort of a similar name to now. So that's kind of how we got to be what we are now. When I joined the leadership team back in February, there were around 500 members or so in the DVRA when it was just the residents group. And I joined with the intention of trying to grow the organization, particularly by getting a more diverse representation of the neighborhood involved, both trying to start on the pathway of getting businesses and some of the stakeholders around who are not residents involved, but also just to get a more representative population of residents, because as we know, some associations sort of tend to skew kind of a particular age bracket, and people have been in the neighborhood for longer sometimes. tend to skew a little bit more toward owners than renters, which isn't necessarily a representation of downtown neighborhood where we've got thousands of students and majority renter population alongside certainly hundreds, actually thousands of condo owners. So we're just trying to sort of get that full breadth of bringing in both diversity and also the larger mix of people. I'm happy to report along the way. We've had some success with that, both in getting diversity and just getting the numbers up. So we went from around 500 people when I joined to a little over 800 now. So we've grown about 60% in the last 7 months or so after, I don't know, 9 or 10 years of getting where we were before that. So it feels like there's good effort around that. And a lot of what we've been doing in this sort of renewed phase, both leading up to the merger and now post-merger, is trying to organize events that are kind of education around civics and give people opportunity to kind of come together and learn about issues. I am always amused when I come to FP&A or I've joined on Zoom the Wharf District Council meetings before, and you know, some of those stuff in this area. People have surprisingly nuanced understandings of Chapter 91 law. And I think, you know, this is sort of what you see across civic associations. I go to a lot of, personally, I'm just weird, but I go to a lot of civic associations across the city, and people have, you know, really detailed understandings of Article 80 and development process review and, you know, strange like nuances around zoning. And I think sometimes that's sort of like what civic groups get focused on, and that's important because it's a big piece of things, but we can get a little in the weeds. So we're trying to take a little bit of a step back sometimes and get some bigger picture for folks as well to bring new people in, because, you know, there's a set of us who are wonky and like to do that stuff. And then there's a set of people who like just want to talk about how to make the city a better place to live and work and visit and, you know, with the place that works for everyone. So we've been trying to host some stuff around that. We did actually do a meeting with the PDA, the Boston Planning and Development Agency, around Plan Downtown and the kind of efforts to rethink how downtown works and trying to do it from a perspective that was not too in the weeds. And had good turnout since we started doing this. We've got 150, 160 people. We've been kind of experimenting with meeting formats, but also we did breakout groups, kind of give people opportunities to talk to each other. We also did a State of Downtown meeting not too long ago with Mayor Wu and kind of our whole slate of elected officials, which I know some of you were at. Also just did a transportation and traffic and pedestrian safety forum with a panel of folks last week, just like a month ago already. And as Mark said, we're now in collaboration with some of our neighboring associations, the District Council, 4-Point Neighborhood Association, and the Leather District Neighborhood Association, hosting next week a candidate forum for at-large candidates, which we are happy. We've got a flyer for this. A few of you have. We are happy to have gotten all 8 candidates on the ballot to have committed to. So barring anyone flaking, it's an opportunity for everyone to meet, talk to candidates. We're actually doing it in a little bit of a different format than candidate forums tend to run. So if you've been to a candidate forum, usually it's like the candidates chat, you know, to questions that they like don't really answer for like 2 hours, and then everyone leaves. So we don't think that's super effective. For a second, I was like, it's that time check.
Just on
we don't think that's super effective, so we are going to ask people to answer some pretty specific questions, but we also are going to give the bulk of the time for people to actually talk with candidates one-on-one and meet people and kind of have individual conversations. And we're hoping, since we've kind of got everyone in the room together, that gives people an opportunity to really have an informed perspective of the whole field of candidates for at-large. Particularly folks who are representing the entirety of the city and not just individual districts. So certainly hope some of you will join us. That will be in a Chapter 91 space.
Thank you. I was gonna say that we didn't.
Yeah. Grateful. Yes, that has bathrooms, which you cannot find, nor would you know that that was a public space if you didn't already know it, because the sign is, you know, hidden in like this big. But it's a separate conversation. There's actually a meeting about that earlier today. But yeah, it's gonna be in the 4-Point room at Atlantic Wharf, 290 Congress Street, next Tuesday, October 24th. And doors will open at 5. We'll have kind of like a half an hour for people to sort of mill around and network. We'll start right at 5:30 and then going until 7:30, and we'll have both a speaking program where we have asked candidates to address public safety, climate resiliency, and community engagement, as well as giving opening statements and sort of their specific public remarks, and then we'll give folks an opportunity to chat with them. One-on-one.
Unfamiliar, it's next to Smith and Malinsky.
Right, yes, and I find a lot of people also know it as like the former BSA space. I don't know why everyone knows that that's where that was, but almost everyone just says.
Yeah, but it's not, BSA is still there.
For those that worked on the downtown music
Oh,
project, like,
upstairs. They used to be.
many a meeting in Fort Point.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think this is a great example of collaborating between neighborhood groups, and we're delighted to be able to do that, and I hope to do so more. More in the future, because you know, the other issue that we share in common, I believe, is this whole question about bike lanes and traffic and our inability to influence the city's direction. As strongly as we're in favor of bike lanes, all bike lanes are not created equal. And so we're hoping that by having other voices than ours, and I know that most other communities that I've talked with are having the same problem, and they're also not getting the kind of answer and response that they need. I'm hoping that by working together with other neighborhood associations, our collective voices will be more powerful than they are individually, because we do have common interests, and everybody loves bike lanes. The word that we got is it's okay to have bad traffic as long as you have bike lanes. It's not a zero-sum game. There are ways of working on this, and we need to speak up together. So
Yeah, so I would definitely agree that it's our hope, on behalf of the leadership team, all of us have been talking a lot about how we can collaborate better with the groups around us. I think also downtown has a little bit of a distinctive perspective, because we recognize that while we're trying to represent, should use that word carefully. So I want to clarify that we don't try to speak on behalf of people in the neighborhood. So I don't mean represent in the sense that we're like saying that we're representing the opinion of the people who are in the neighborhood. But we are obviously trying to specifically get people who live, work, you know, have sort of a stationary stake in the neighborhood to be involved in the neighborhood association. We also recognize at the same time that downtown is somewhat distinctively an epicenter of, you know, transit and travel and visitors and commerce and such that we also have to sort of plug in with. So I think to your point, we're actually interested in ways of collaborating with people who are not adjacent to us also, because we see that there's sort of connection across the state. So I agree completely. And bike lanes in particular seem to be the lightning rod issue of the day. And there are some very specific projects I know, obviously State Street, Wilk Street in particular, that, you know, it's very hard to sort of talk about one block of a street and not talk about the next block of it just because it happens to, you know, exit the neighborhood. And yet the project plan by the city is largely being done in that very piecemeal kind of way.
absolutely. But we'll look forward to working with you, and I'm sorry I won't be in town for the forum, but I know I'm sure we'll be well represented, and we look forward to doing that sort of thing in the future. And thank you for coming.
There's one thing that talking about bridging with the downtown, so the downtown pilot program for converting office to residential.
That was just announced today.
That was just announced today as part of the EPDA's board meeting last week. Does include parts along Fort Point Channel, and so it's not just downtown. It does expand across the channel and includes a little bit of the work district as well. So just want to kind of alert people that.
Can you share more information about that? I didn't see that.
Yeah, I can send you the map.
Yeah, so I guess in quick summary, if you were following, so Plan Downtown had this notion that office conversions would sort of be part of the parallel study that was called the Downtown Revitalization Study. It came out in January, and then they launched the Downtown Office Conversion Study as like an offshoot of Plan Downtown in order to address that. And along the way, they had said that downtown was gonna be the focus. And then a map that I think Matthew Murphy rightly took issue with was released along the way that labeled downtown to be like everything from the west end to like the southern portion of Chinatown and then like part of Fort Point all the way to like the first chunk of Back Bay.
Yeah,
And, you know, it was sort of unclear what exactly downtown meant at that point, I guess, because Plan Downtown is much more narrowly defined. Since then, as Sarah was alluding, they've now said that they're going to do a pilot for this that has a very specifically drawn map that I don't think you could describe as anything except for gerrymandered into the Fort Point area, because there's literally just this little box that crosses the channel for just like one little block basically into Fort Point. So they clearly have some very specific idea in mind about what portion of Fort Point is meant to be part of this. They've also said though that they are, and this is what they've like literally said as of today, this is news this last week, that they're considering anywhere in the city on a case-by-case basis, but that this is sort of a pilot area. The terms as I understand them are that you have to complete the application process and have a full building permit by October 2025 is my understanding, and the buildings are subject to the new version of IDP, not the old version of them, as well as to the new stretch code, not the old version of it. So you have to meet the new energy criteria, the new inclusionary development criteria, and meet a timeline. And practically speaking, and I'm sure probably everyone in this room knows this from experience, and everyone on Zoom probably knows this from experience, a 2-year timeframe for development review approval, even with the new PPDA staff, would be incredibly fast. So we're basically talking about projects that are going to be proposed right now. There's no way that someone who's proposing a project a year from now would possibly meet that timeline.
so is this a change in zoning or is there an incentive built into it?
There's an incentive.
It's the incentive,
Yeah. The zoning piece of it is coming, but it's gonna trail far behind the timeline for the
Yeah.
conversions.
These are the tax abatements that they.
Yes, yeah.
And Bobby Rudolph, I know you've been tracking this, you're familiar with that?
I am, Mark, and you know, I think that some of the restrictions, some of the property owners will find just aren't feasible. But we'll see what the city does with it as the program progresses.
Yeah, great, okay, well, thank you. Matthew, thank you very much for coming, and we'll look forward to working with you in the future. We have Kate Gilbert, I think, is Kate there?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, sorry, Kate.
Why don't you come up with?
Yeah,
Want the mic?
yeah. there you go. We were not able to get that
Okay,
presentation because it's on a Google Drive. And we
okay,
don't have
all right,
access.
so we'll work without it. Can you pull up the website?
Yeah,
Okay, how about we go to nowandthere.org. So, all one word,
no, okay.
/graft, GRAFT. Great, and then you can sign up for our email newsletter while we're there. Okay, perfect. Well, you can just sort of talk over this. Hi, everyone. I'm Kate Gilbert. I'm the executive director and founder of Now and There. And sorry we couldn't be here sooner to preview this project. What we like to do is share works of public art that are coming. But I think the mayor was scheduled instead. So, okay, fine. Now and There is a nonprofit. We do temporary public art across the city, and we've had the great fortune of working 4 times here now in Central Wharf Park. For this project, we worked with a guest curator named Pedro Alonso. He's always trying to bring something new to the park that you know, gets people to sort of maybe stop and sit instead of just wandering, you know, racing across to the Rings Fountain, which is very attractive, or the aquarium. In this case, he chose Edra Soto. Edra was born in Puerto Rico, came to the United States and Chicago for grad school in the early 90s, and has always been very interested in the play of architecture and culture across across nations and boundaries. For this project, she was looking at the Ray House for you architects, and I'm sure you know what that is, but for the rest of us, there's sort of grates that are in the front of houses in warmer climates. They're actually a sort of colonial, Spanish colonial carryover. But they have taken on a very sort of sense of pride and ownership for, at least for Edra and her family in Puerto Rico. And so she's looking at the migration of architecture and influences. So for this project, maybe you can sort of scroll down. I hope there's some pictures on here. She was very drawn. She came in like one of the coldest days last year in December.
Can people, excuse me, can people on Zoom see these images?
We are not.
They're
No,
not.
so you have to share screen.
Yeah, I have, I thought, but,
There you go. Perfect. And what she was drawn to were the trees.
How's that?
For those of you who have been around for long enough, you'll probably remember these trees in this park was created before the Greenway and was an important part of providing shade for this area. And so, can everyone see?
Yes, you're on.
Thank you. So she wanted to create moments of respite within this sort of corridor that goes by. There's plenty of benches along the side, but she wanted people to pause and take note of this connection between the sea on one side, where a lot of maritime trade influences are coming, and the city on the other side. So she created these large totemic sculptures, as we've been calling them, that are also benches. And you can sit on one of them. They're interestingly all lined up facing the water. And when I asked her why, she didn't quite have an answer. But they, if you sit in them, and I really encourage you to take some time when maybe not so cold to take a seat. They're very weirdly comforting because they're close to the shoulders. And because they're so tall, they naturally draw the eye up to the trees that she really wanted people to take note of. Each piece has a different sort of structure of lines that were influenced from the Rejas, as well as, there might be some more photos below, as well as the artist Edra, as well as palm trees from Puerto Rico. So she really wanted to bring a sense of the island to Boston. And when we had the opening last 2 weeks ago, we brought in a Puerto Rican artist who did a beautiful performance responding to the migration and the journey from Puerto Rico to here. These are just some interesting installation shots. There's majestic trees with a lot of very deep roots. There's a exchange valve water thing underground that's connected to the tunnel, and a lot of work goes into doing that. So the work will be up through next August. I encourage you guys to go check it out. There will be some holiday lighting. Every year we bring in some holiday lighting that will go up in time for the solstice. We're looking at some specialty lighting to also play around with these shadows of the pieces themselves. I also encourage you guys to take the water taxi, or the MBTA water ferry over here, over to Lot Lab. It's a new initiative that we started in partnership with the National Park Service. There are 4 installations that will be up through the end of October. And it's part of our mission of going into vacant lots and working with communities and artists to imagine what the future can be. Our work is always temporary, but it is meant to sort of suggest other more permanent expressions, and also to work with residents and people in communities to see what art could help support what you want to do. So I don't know, maybe some anti-bike lane art next time.
I'm gonna take bike lane, just not on station.
Right.
Are the lot labs in Charleston?
Yes, it's in Charlestown. Sorry, I didn't finish that. Take that over to take the ferry over to the Charlestown lot, and it's the entrance right before the Navy Yard. So it's right next to, there's children's center there. Yeah.
Well, this is wonderful. That's great. Okay, thank you.
I just did that. That little park is a little gem here in the Wharf District that I don't think we appreciate or even see, because we're traveling from one spot to the other. And Kate and her team do such fabulous exhibits. And is there some way that the council can help you to promote?
Yes, yes, yes. I mean, I wish we had been in front of you a little bit sooner to invite you all to the opening. Every year we change it over in September. You can pretty much count on it. The first or second week of September, we do an opening. We will be doing more programming as our team gets bigger. We're a team of 8. So we can be in touch and share flyers. We also are a 501c3 nonprofit. We get a little bit of money from the city. Most of it is from individuals and foundations. You can always support nowandthere.org/support. But I think also just keeping in touch about what other spaces are opening up in the area where temporary art could be supportive of a more vibrant and equitable city is helpful. And then I think Chris is on the phone, on the line. We're trying hard to make sure that we're partnering with the Greenway as well in this work. We are planning a first for the city, which is a triennial. Every 3 years, we're hoping to pull together a public art festival. And when I raise the last couple $100,000 by the end of this week, we'll say definitively that it's going to be in 2025. So that's another way that we can start thinking about other things that are happening early May, but throughout all of the summer of 2025 that we could partner on when it comes to events or programming or any number of things.
And what might it be if I should say it again?
A triennial, meaning every 3 years, a citywide expression of public art. We're committed to 15 new commissions, all free. Half of the artists being local artists, and then a lot of national artists to help us see our city differently.
Well, it is a gem, as Suzanne says. And by the way, there's a little hole in the wall. Coffee place that has really good breakfasts and lunches that, we'd love to support them, and we go over there and get a little something to eat and then sit in the park. It's just great.
It is great. They have great coffee, and they're really, really nice people.
Very
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Any other questions for Kate? No, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
What's the point? Oh, Matthew, did you raise your hand again?
Yes, before I catch my plane, I wonder if I could just say a quick word about the Milk Street project.
Sure, go right ahead.
Are you able to hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. I just wanted to, I'm going to share my screen here for just a moment, if you'd allow me. I wanted everyone to know, here we go, share screen. Oh, host disabled screen sharing.
Yeah.
Well, I had I want to just circle back to the Milk Street project. And you may hear a voice in the background. That's the nice lady over the intercom.
You can share now if you want.
Okay.
But don't leave without my comment.
Yeah.
Because you're the host.
Okay. Oops, that's not the screen I wanted to share. 1 second. I'll get to it. Okay, so I had an appointment last week. You can make individual appointments to express support for the Wharf District Council's alternative suggestions. We've submitted alternative plans for Milk Street, which basically sort of take this model here, the picture on the main page of the Milk Street Bike Lanes project. What we have proposed as an alternative is to create two-way bike lanes the entire length of Milk Street as an alternative, relatedly, to what is currently on State Street. And I know we've had much discussion about State Street, and we have submitted separate plans regarding State Street. But I wanted to make folks aware that although we've submitted plans about the Milk Street project formally, it would be very helpful for our individual members to make appointments. I had my appointment last week, and you can see here the dates. Everyone sees the dates when the Better Bike Lanes office hours are available. And it's very simple. For the next one, you would just click on the office hours, and then you pull up, you schedule a 15-minute, just doesn't even have to be 15 minutes. It could be shorter than that. Mine was about 15, but you just schedule a particular appointment time, and a calendar will pop up and you'll make an appointment. And what I'm suggesting is that although we've submitted, the Wharf District Council has submitted, sort of formally submitted plans. Those plans would be bolstered and supported by individuals calling in, making appointments, and letting the project managers and the BTD know that you support the Wharf District Council's alternative plans. I think this is a case where we both individually and collectively need to come together to really make our voices heard. And Suzanne has done a fabulous job. Mark has did a great job of drawing up actual visualizations of the plan. I'll stop sharing. Oh, I won't stop sharing quite yet. So if everyone, I'll put the link into the chat so folks have this, and do pay attention to the dates that are upcoming, because those are important.
Matthew, could I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Could you do a little write-up that we could send to our members?
Yeah, absolutely.
Give them a guide as to where to go, what the link is, and what our thought, what comment might be.
Absolutely. I've got just like 2 or 3 primary talking points, and I'm happy to do that, and can send that out as soon as I'm back. Before I jump off of here, I wanted to just make one shameless plug, and I'm going to just show you here. This is from today's whale watch. If you have not been out to take a whale watch lately, the whales are out there. They are still feeding, and as you can see, this one came up very close to the vessel. We have high-speed catamarans that take you out to the Stellwagen Bank Marine Sanctuary, and I went on a whale watch myself just last week, and it was spectacular, really fantastic. So I'm going to pause share, Mark. And
you can also turn the posting back over to me. I don't know if I can grab it, but if not, just see if you can turn it back over to me.
Oh, there we go. Stop share. There we go.
Thank you.
Anyway, I look forward to seeing you all in person. Thank you for letting me just dive in here from the mountains of North Carolina, and I'll see you soon.
Appreciate it. Turn the host back over. Just a quick update on the climate resilience project. We're continuing. Suzanne and folks from the aquarium are going to be making a presentation
on November 15th to the at the State House to the House State House House of Representatives, and possibly the Senate, some Senate folks as well. So they will be seeing the presentation that we have that Mark and Derek have put together regarding our project.
And I'm sure others are welcome to go, but you'll be doing the presentation. Yes,
Vicky and Rick will be coming as well. So it will be Vicky and Rick from the aquarium, myself and Derek. And
This is a committee here.
it's not.
Legislative committee.
It's a separate. John Rogers, Representative John Rogers has arranged for this.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll get a good crowd.
Yeah.
that'd be great. We did apply for a NOAA grant, and we did not receive it. We were not shortlisted, but we got some good feedback for future grant applications. So it was not surprising. There was probably 500 applicants for very small number. We were obviously disappointed, but not particularly surprised. So we'll continue that, and we are hoping still to be able to get at some point in the near future, the application for the earmark for the next one, but we have not received that yet, and John Rogers said that it should be coming soon, and we shouldn't be surprised that it is here.
Thanks to Aaron Medowitz and his staff.
Yeah.
For making that a reality. So this will be the third year
Yeah.
that we will be receiving an earmark from the state for our climate resiliency task force.
And we talked about the idea of doing some sort of recognition of Aaron and his leadership and his success in getting us funding for our study at the December 19th party. We just found out that we have the venue today, so we will move forward with that, and hopefully it will be available. We have nothing we need to have an executive session on, I don't believe. Do we have it?
Well, I don't have anything. I know that the Black Rose is going before the licensing board regarding change in their liquor license, which would allow them on Sundays to serve alcohol for brunch prior to noontime. Apparently, this is going to be on blue laws. And I had spoken with the attorney, and she had said that they didn't need anything from us. So I'm going on that assumption that they don't need anything. I'm assuming no one has any objection to it. The other thing, just a couple of other things. Sheila, I didn't know if you wanted to talk about the situation with, I can never remember their name.
Independence Wharf, me.
Yes.
I don't think this is appropriate right now, but
Okay.
we're still, should we say, securing as much information as we can. I think we don't have as many facts as we would like, especially about, what they've actually done in terms of pyramids, et cetera. So I do believe, and I think Heidi's still on, that perhaps the next meeting we'd like to discuss it with everyfolk.
Yeah.
This is regarding, say, 270 Atlantic Avenue, the building on
470, yeah.
470, Independence Wharf.
Yeah, okay, well, let us know.
It's a sign slab, yeah.
Yeah.
And we have nothing new to report on State Street at the moment.
Anything else, anybody?
I just want to promote
Yes,
the,
please.
Wrote it down.
Large Candidates Forum.
And that has or will go out to everybody.
It's gone,
Fine.
but there is a link. We're asking that they RSVP, just to get an idea as to attendance, but you will be admitted if you don't. So I encourage our folks to participate. I think it's a good opportunity to get to meet them.
How many at-larges actually get this? Is it 4?
Yeah,
so that's what I want.
Good moment for civic education, right? So Boston City Council is 13 councilors, 9 districts, they're representing individual areas of the city, 4 at large. There are 8 candidates running. The reason we did not have a preliminary election is because by Boston's law, if there are not more than twice as many candidates as the number of seats, then they don't hold preliminary. So 4 seats, 8 candidates, minimum preliminaries. This is actually the first time that we'll see an election result for these folks. There's no kind of first round of elimination. And I think,
Because Michael Flaherty.
yes, because Michael Flaherty withdrew after, so originally thought there's some good winner. If you really want to get in the weeds about this. So,
Is it always on and off year?
well, it depends who you ask. So it's always an off year to both, it's always an off year to the state and national elections. This is sort of, by some people's definition, a double off year because it's also not a mayoral because the council terms are 2 years, the mayoral is 4 years. The mayoral is also always offset with the state and federal because of the timing. There's been actually conversation about moving that. I think people who are interested in local politics and recognize that local elections actually have more impact on us and our neighborhoods than the state and national ones often do. We'd like to think of this as being beyond here. However, the turnout does not necessarily represent that. I would actually say, while plugging this, it's a good opportunity, yes, to meet candidates, good opportunity to be well informed, it's a good opportunity to have conversations, because the format we're doing with people about specific things you care about, particularly because the 3 incumbents who presumably are likely to be reelected are there, plus one of the other people at least is going to be on council, so you're talking to your future representation. But it also, we have, frankly, collectively, all of our neighborhoods, 4 Point, downtown, Wharf District, Broude District, have abysmal turnout relative even to the abysmal citywide turnout for elections like this. And I will say, having talked to lots of elected officials, they notice that, and they spend their time and attention in the places where they believe that people are putting their time and attention back into
They
them.
very much know.
Yeah, so
And so I'd say, I'll piggyback that and say, it's gotten so much easier with early voting. You can vote, you don't have to vote within your district, you can vote where it's convenient for you, where maybe plus where you're working, where you happen to be, and then plus the actual day. And do mail-in ballots.
Yes.
So there's so many ways to do it. Early voting.
Saturday, October 28th, runs through November 3rd. The registration deadline is October 28th, that Saturday as well. If you have a state issued ID, then you can register online to vote. You don't even have to mail anything in. If you do not have a state issued ID, you can fill the form out online, print it at home, and mail it. You don't have to get a
You
physical
can
copy.
vote online?
You cannot vote online. You can register.
Yeah.
You can register to vote by mail through the end of the month, and to fill out the application online, and they'll mail you a ballot, or as Sarah said, you can vote in person and vote for the week, that 28th through the 3rd. Some of those locations are scattered around the city. The ones that are closest to here are predominantly City Hall. The schedule for those was online. The page that I put in the chat also that has the RSVP actually has some of this information on it. There's also a page on our website, the usdowntown.org website, the DVNA's website. For voting information, it has information about the elections. It's downtown oriented, so we don't have the work district precincts on it, but we have downtown precincts. It's also got all that information about voting, etc.
I was gonna ask you if I can take that and send it to my folks.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, if it's helpful, we could certainly expand and sort of say, like, here's the stuff for the Wharf District and the Butler District or 4 Points.
That's great.
So FPNA took the downtown one that went out today. And pretty much just, used it as a template and added a couple things that were a little just to where we vote, something like that.
Sure.
But I think Suzanne, you're on the FPNA distribution as well, and I could also on downtown.
Yes.
So it's pretty easy to copy it and paste.
Yeah, great.
I just want to reiterate how important it is to get to know your at-larges and to have them get to know us. I know your organization does not deal with issue advocacy. We do. I mean, there's a number of things that the Wharf District gets involved with and has a definite opinion on. And these folks have been and can be instrumental in supporting us to promote or to move forward the things that are important in our district. So I encourage folks to, unlike some of us, politics isn't necessarily in everybody's blood, but it is important. It's one of those little things that
Well,
can make
also specifically for you all, because you're redistricting.
Yeah.
And now, you have a new district counselor.
not entirely.
Some of you.
Some.
Oh, you're split?
Downtown is also similarly.
Oh,
Yeah, a little bit of that left.
The work is like,
I have them, I still have plans.
and everything south of the Moakley Bridge is still Councilor Flynn's. And north.
Yeah, Norm has a question.
Yeah, so I just want to reinforce what's being said about voting on these off-year elections. A few years ago, we had one of our city councilors at large come and speak to us at Harbor Towers. And we got a nice audience, together for it. And she basically said, well, yeah, you're 1,200 people, but only a tiny handful of you actually vote in these elections. I looked it up. And that's when we learned from City Councilor Wu that we should be doing a better job.
Yeah, good point. Great. Anybody else have anything?
Anybody online? Chris Cook, did you want to say anything?
No, I'm all right, Suzanne. I can follow up with an email with you and get on the docket for the next meeting if that's appropriate. But I'm very, very grateful to be on the call for everyone's work. And I just wanted to reiterate that I'm here to do whatever Kate Gilbert needs. I'm in support of Kate Gilbert. So.
All right. Thank you all. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.